Twitch. Welcome to our first live stream here on Twitch. I am here. I'm Dan Thompson, the Dungeon Master, here with James Lockhart.
So what is it we're looking at today?
This is something we have never done before. We have never done a review as such, but we had all of the books for the Gen Con releases come through for us from Paizo. So what we're going to do, I thought, on this episode is that we're going to take one of those books, the biggest release, the Advanced Player's Guide, and we're going to do an in-depth review of it here on a live stream. So we're going to talk through the Advanced Player's Guide, talk through chapter by chapter what you're going to find in it, try and do a bit of a review on it. We're also recording this, so if you are in America, I'm aware this is a very early stream for you, but the embargo lifted at the start of today, so we're allowed to talk about it today, and we wanted to do it as soon as possible. But we are recording this, so you will get to hear a version of this come out on the podcast feed, assuming nothing has gone wrong with it. We'll have to wait and see.
Fingers crossed.
That's the plan. Yeah, we're gonna go over this book. We'll mention some of the other ones a little bit, but basically this is what we're going to look at today. If you want to talk to us, I will try and get the Twitch chat up if I can. I don't know if I'll be able to just by tuning into it. But if you want to talk to us, if you're any of the Dangerlings, go on our Discord. If you're not a member of our Discord yet, dangerclubpodcast.com, click on the Discord link, and we'll be in the Danger Club chat. We'll be taking any questions you've got about the book as we go through it. So, bit of an experiment. Hopefully, it should be a lot of fun.
I think it'll be a lot of fun, definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing what this book has to offer. It is a mighty tome, let us put it this way. I'm glad it's not physically in my hands because it's massive. Yeah.
I'm buying a copy of this one. This is one of the ones that I am definitely picking up a copy of. So let's dive in and talk about what you get. So what is the Advanced Player's Guide? The way Paizo have talked about it is that the APG is sort of, they talk about it as being like the fourth leg of the table that is Pathfinder 2nd edition. So right then and there you sort of see that is the kind of book that we are dealing with here, and that's the kind of game that Pathfinder 2nd edition is. It is a game that to really get the most of, you need 4 books. I'm not sure you do, but that's sort of the way they framed it. So they said the 4 core books are the core book, obviously, which you need to play the game, the bestiary, because you need monsters to fight, the Game Mastery Guide, which breaks down how the rules work and allows you to homebrew content, and now the Advanced Player's Guide, which gives you all of your extra options for as a player that you want, that you wouldn't have had otherwise, and really fleshes out a lot of the concepts that are in the core book. On a side note, I would argue you probably don't need the Game Mastery Guide. We've talked about that on one of our Facebook live streams. It's a really interesting book. It's got some really interesting stuff there if you're a Game Master nerd and you want to dive down into all the bits and bobs of how to do it. You don't need the Game Mastery Guide to play this game. You don't really need all of the APG, but I would say that this is a more essential book overall than the other one. So what the Advanced Player's Guide is it's going to give you loads of extra options of things that you can play as a player in Pathfinder. Loads of extra things that you can do for your characters. So we're going to have some new ancestries in here. We've got 4 new classes. We've got something like 40-something archetypes. The archetype system finally comes into its own and allows you to make loads and loads of crazy characters. And then, as you would expect, you're going to have your feats, you're going to have your spells, you're going to have your items. You've also got lots and lots of art in here, and we'll talk about some of that as we go along. But what I would suggest, yes, Stu, 40. There are a lot.
40.
It's actually more than 40. What I would suggest is we just go through chapter by chapter, and we'll chat about the different things that are in here, and some opinions on sort of what makes them good, what makes them bad, and so forth. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great. So I'm just showing everybody we've scrolled down to the contents, and I can see that, as is traditional for Pathfinder things, the first is Ancestries and Backgrounds. Oh, lots of lovely artwork as well, as per. Beautiful artwork.
Yes. Oh, yes. Sorry. There's new backgrounds as well.
Oh, Of course there is. Of course there is, because this is Pathfinder and it has to be as complicated as possible. But it's great. It's great. I love it. I love it. It's so much. It's so rich, the characters you can make with it.
Yeah, I mean, the big part of sort of one of the real goals with 2nd edition, I think, is that you can go to your game master and you can say, I want to play this. How do I do it? And there is a path to be able to do that with everything, rather than sort of saying, well, just play a fighter and make it all up as you go along and just make up the rest, do it all as flavour. Just like there are mechanical ways of getting to exactly the kind of character you want. The backgrounds, it's mostly, we'll get to the backgrounds. There's a few changes in it. The introduction's super quick. Straight away you can see what the new ancestries are laid out. So your new ancestries, you're going to have catfolk, you've got kobolds, you have orcs, you have ratfolk, and you have, shout out to Colin Hubbard, you have the Tengu, finally.
What?
And you have versatile heritages as well, which we'll get to.
What a splendid outfit the Ratfolk is wearing. What, I mean, she looks amazing. Like a character from Mary Poppins. Look at that. I mean, who knew that Ratfolk would dress so well?
We are going to have much to say about the clothing of the Ratfolk and the Catfolk, in fact. They're just wonderful. Yeah. A lot of the options that are in this book in terms of ancestries and classes are based on when the original playtest of 2nd edition was done, and the original a lot of surveys were put out to players to sort of say, what ancestries do you want to see in this game? What 1st edition classes do you want to see in this game? And they did a lot of votes on what sort of people liked playing, and a lot of this came up. And what you're seeing in this book are some of the really highly ranked ones. These are ancestries and classes that people in 1st edition really, really loved. In some cases, actually more than core ancestries and classes, and more than the Lost Omens character guide. That's the slightly skewed one. Is the Lost Omens character guide ones were kind of the runners up to this one, but that book came out first just because of the printing schedule. So we got Leshies and Lizard Folk and Hobgoblins really early on, right. But now we're getting some of the stuff that people wanted. You'll see straight away there's a lot of Dex characters in this. Dex is if you like characters with a high Dex, then all of these characters are going to appeal to you. Let's start, shall we, with the Catfolk.
Alrighty, always a favourite.
Look at that. This guy's amazing outfit.
Look at him. He is straight from Boomtown. Like that is amazing. I love him. He looks a bit like Velda in kind of jaunty cat form.
Yeah, I think I messaged this to you when we first got this and just said it looks like Velda at a furry convention. Yeah. They've really leaned into the feline nature of the catfolk, which seems like a strange sort of thing, but they've sort of said, they are house cat-like catfolk. That is the visual style for catfolk now in Pathfinder, rather than being sort of more like tigers and lions and things like that. There is a heritage for it, so you get a few different. Got your clawed catfolk, hunting catfolk, and you've got a jungle catfolk heritage. So if you want to play a tiger person, then you can. So you can play a that's all in there, which I'm happy about because I'm in Kingmaker. I play a catfolk champion or paladin who is a lion. So. And you can do all of that stuff with it. I don't want to dive too much into everyone's feats, but some of the feat sort of stuff that you'll get as a catfolk. Cat's luck, very good. You can re-roll failed reflex saves, always good. I really like well met traveller. You get bonuses to diplomacy. It just sounds really like a Khajiit.
Yeah.
Nostrix saying 9 lives catfolk. If you find this, this one of the heritages. So you're a catfolk with 9 lives, which means that if you get reduced to 0 hit points by a crit, you're dying 1 instead of dying 2, which is, it seems really situational, but getting dropped to 0 by crits is one of those things that just straight up kills player characters. It's so dangerous, and so being able to take that off the thing because you've got 9 lives, I think that's just lovely. I really like that.
That was tremendous.
And of course you're going to have all the other stuff to give you claws and all those kind of things, and lots of stuff for sneaking and things. And we've got another little catfolk rogue. They're fun. I like catfolk a lot. They were very popular. Should we talk about kobolds?
Yes, let's talk about kobolds, because actually this came up a little bit in, recently, but they've sort of changed, haven't they? They're physically, sort of how they've been represented has changed, and I like it.
It's a big change. It was one of the art changes that's been in since the start of second edition. It came in because they're on the cover of the bestiary, the first bestiary for second edition. And they really made a sense that they're really going to be linked to their dragon heritage. So whichever dragon they're descended from, that's the colour they're going to be. And you that comes up as in part of the ancestry. You can really tailor yourself to your dragon ancestry. So you'll be good colours, and you've got a real kind of big wide shovel head. Yeah. Some people don't like it. Some people don't like change. I really like it. I think it's really distinctive. I like that they've got their own sort of thing. Well, and they've and they can be metallic heritages as well, not just so you can have a copper kobold rather than just a red and black and those sort of things. Because I think some of the stuff I love about kobolds are really popular. They were one of the most popular ancestries when brought up for this, and a big part of that comes through society play. So if you've been somebody who's played Pathfinder Society, you're going to be really familiar with the sewer dragons and with kobolds in general. They pop up in society play all the time. So loads of people have wanted to play them. And in fact, they've become society legal from today, I think. From the book coming out, you can now play a kobold in Pathfinder Society. Which, if I didn't already have my Paladin of Razmir rolled up for Pathfinder Society over this weekend for Gen Con Online, I would be making a kobold because I really like them. Some really nice stuff with them.
No, I like the kobolds. I think they're cool.
They're so fun, and once you get into their feats, you're going to absolutely love them. We had a lot of fun playing with kobolds on our Little Trouble in Big Absalom special over the weekend, which is out and seems to be really popular. Lots of people are enjoying that, and we got to play a bit with that. I don't think we played too much with the rules here, but I think if you're actually going to play a kobold and you want to really deep dive into their stuff, you're going to find so much stuff that you will like. Right at level 1, some of the feats that you can take. There's a feat called Cringe, which is So cringe is it's a reaction if someone critically hits you. What you do with that is you get to roll against them. You basically get to look so pathetic that they get a penalty to their damage because they pull their blow because they're so pitiful of you.
I have to say that pitiful posturing is probably one of the best expressions I've heard so far today. That's delightful.
It's great. And another one, Dragon's Presence, right? So Dragon's Presence is, because the whole thing of kobolds is they think they are descended from dragons, and that's really important to them right up until it gets dangerous, and then so Dragon's Presence, it means everything becomes all or nothing. So if you roll a saving throw against fear, if you get a success, it is automatically a critical success. If you get a fail, it is automatically a critical fail. There is no middle ground. You are either incredibly brave or incredibly cowardly.
Amazing.
It's great, and the cringe. It's an entire feat tree. It goes on. There's a grovel one, which is like it's a ranged feint basically. So you can just get on your knees and start begging, and it lowers people's AC, and then the rogue can jump out and stab them in the back. It's so good.
That's great.
And all the traps. I love them.
I tell you what, it's made them quite distinctive from goblins, because I think that I'd certainly in my mind there was always a bit of an odd crossover of like where do goblins end and kobolds begin, because they fit into that tiny, rather rambunctious kind of crazy sort of races. And now I think they're really, really distinctive. You definitely know a kobold from a goblin or from someone else. It's really good.
Yeah, goblins are insane little monsters trying to jump around and bite you, and kobolds are like cringing minions and quite smart and quite, they've got loads of traps, and there's loads of stuff that makes them feel really unique. So I think they've got their own vibe, which is really nice.
Love the artwork as well.
It's really fun. Well, speaking of artwork, the next one we'll talk about is the Orc, which, again, very popular. I was surprised to see the Orc in here because we've already got half-orcs. So, I was surprised that this was one of them. Apparently incredibly popular. And there is a whole subset of fandom that really, really love orcs.
Well, I mean, you look at the LARPing community, and you see as many people dressed as orcs as you do dressed as paladins and knights and other things like that. So,
yeah, and I think sort of things like Warcraft and Warhammer and stuff have done a lot for orc fandom. And for those people, a half orc perhaps is not enough. They want the full experience. So they end up being very popular. So they've gone in. There is a note on the artwork here, which is one of the. If I have a criticism of the APG, it is slightly in some of the art here, and the orc is a good example of that. Some of the art in this is a different kind of style to what we're used to in Pathfinder books. It's a more sketchy, more kind of not quite watercolory, but more muted colours kind of thing, and it reminds me a little bit of some of the 5th edition D&D art, which I'm not particularly a fan of. For me, Pathfinder is big, bold, bright colours, big blocks of colour, things that really jump out of the page at you, rather than this kind of slightly more washed out, slightly more maybe realistic kind of style, which feels like a kind of it reminds me of sort of some of the older role-playing books you used to get, sort of in the 90s role-playing books.
Yeah, and it almost feels to me a little bit like a concept painting. This one, to be honest, like something that you do quite briefly to show a film producer, like this is kind of what we think the orc should look like, not really something you want to publish.
It doesn't. It's weird. It's jarring to me. And there are a few. The Tengu is like this as well, and there are a few others. There's a few other bits of art in this that aren't the sort of the Wayne Reynolds-esque style, which I really like. And I was hoping. I think for the orc, I was hoping, because I'm a Warcraft fan as well, and I've played orcs a lot in it. So I was hoping for big, blocky, chunky, really big and solid, and something that looked really different to a half orc. And I feel that these are, I don't know, I feel like I want my orcs to be a bit bigger. These are very Tolkien orcs, these very Lord of the Ringsy, which is fine. Your orc is pretty straight up. If you want to make a good fighter, if you want to make a good combat character, your orc's going to give you plenty of stuff for that. And if you want a character with really good survivability, it's quite good. So you can build a caster with your orcs, but you're going to have a lot more survivability with it. But it's kind of there. Like I say, it doesn't do much for me, but maybe I think that a lot of that is the artwork. And it's quite focused. The Hobgoblin was quite similar for me as well. Very, very focused kind of Ancestry Feats. And I'm like, I can't quite work out what I want to do with that. It's just not my kind of character.
Holdscarred, definitely. We just had Nostrix saying about the Holdscarred orc. Very, very orky names as well. The Badlands orc, the Deep orc. It's like, that's pretty good. I do quite like the second picture of the orc. I've sort of dwelled on him, the archer. He's a bit more, although no tusks.
Yes, yeah. No, I think that is a feat. I think you can get tusks as tusks is a level 1 feat where you get an unarmed attack.
But they should all have the tusks, surely. I mean, that's the orc. That's one of the defining features. That and
Yeah,
big.
I want if ever there's an ancestry you could build out of polygons, the orc is the one I want for. I want orcs to be big, blocky, chunky guys.
Yeah, we've got a lot of love for orcs going on in the chat.
Yeah,
they're popular.
And mechanically, if you want to build an orc, there's everything you want there. You've got your survivability. You're going to have you're hard to kill. You've got loads of hit points. If you want to do that, then but you're not automatically dumb as well. That's the other nice thing. Orcs have really been rewritten a lot especially in 2nd edition. It started in 1st edition, but there's a lot of, they're not a one-note ancestry anymore. They've got a really complex culture to them, and that comes across in the build. The fact that there's an orc lore ability, which is nice. But I want to get on to the next ancestry, which is one of my favourite ones.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't love rat folk? Look at that guy. Oh my god. He's a toy maker. Like, right? What?
You want to speak of bold colours, and you want to speak of sort of stuff that jumps off the page. The rat folk is exactly that. So the very first rat folk that you get in here, he's this little guy tinkering with toys. He's got pouches and belts and things all over him and little toolboxes. It's just delightful. One of the things that has been brought in for the rat folk in 2nd edition is they're being brought a little bit more in line with Starfinder. So they're now referred to as Yosoki. So Yosoki is the term for rat folk in Starfinder. Now that is the term for rat folk in Pathfinder, and it's what they call themselves. So like the Troglodytes will call themselves the Zolgath. They have a word for themselves. The lizard folk are the Uruxi. The rat folk are the Yosoki. That's their term. In terms of stuff that they can do, they're very good tinkers. What sort of things they can talk? Oh yeah, they can talk to rats. They can later turn into rats.
Wow.
Nostrix is pointing out Yosoki rhymes with Uruxi, so we can do another round of the Uruxi sea shanty sometime.
Excellent, good.
Looking forward to that. You will be pleased to know, any Starfinder players, that cheek pouches are back, so they can store things in their cheek pouches. In fact, there is a whole feat tree that allows you to store more things in your cheek pouches and to just shovel things into your cheek pouch. But there is a note to say that basically while you have items stored in your cheeks, your speech is noticeably difficult to understand because you have a mouthful of just stuff, of potions and things.
I love it.
I think it's
and you can empty your mouth with a single action, so you just go literally just spit it all out.
Which is just like ninth level, big mouth. You can just have bigger. You can store it to one bulk's worth of items. So you could just have loads of stuff in. Towards the end of the Ratfolk one of our favourite ones, one of your favourite bits of art, I think, James.
Look at that. She looks splendid. How magnificent. A Victorian-esque sort of lady rat. Absolutely brilliant. She's got to be...
it's just wonderful. That's what I want from that's what I want from a book like this. From anything that is player focused, I want art that is going to make me immediately want to play that character.
Yes.
And that just makes me just a Jane Austen kind of rat folk. And it's the fact the dress is really tattered. So she's found this dress in the trash somewhere, and is styling it out. It's just it's lovely.
Love it.
Right.
All right,
mate. All right. If we talk about a group that are not birds, it's the Tengu.
Yeah, they're definitely not birds, and they're definitely not drawn as well. What is that first Tengu all about?
His feet are a bit weird, aren't they?
What's happened to his feet?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's happened to his feet? Was he standing on something, do you think, and then they've kind of cut off the picture, or?
Yeah, I have some issues with the art for the Tengu. I like what they've done with the beaks. I like the big curved beak. But if you even if you look at the other Tengu, because you get 2 bits of art for everyone, you get another Tengu a bit later on in a dress with a who's looking at some things, and it's a great pose.
Yeah,
much better. But even then, it's a different kind of style, and it's that sort of not my favourite kind of art. But
no, it's more impressionistic, like you said earlier. It's rather than a good old sort of physical. And I think that impressionistic's fine, but if you're, as you said, I think the key part of this artwork is to want to make you play these characters, this race. And I think for me, certainly, you want something bold and the rat folk were great. They just leapt off the page at you. Like you say, you were like, I want to play I want to be a little rat who makes weird bombs or something. Whereas the Tengu, that's just weird.
Yeah, there are some interesting bits in it. Reading some of the lore for Tengu,
yes,
the thing that really jumps out at me is how much Colin got right with Bubba, because we homebrewed Bubba because he was a Tengu in first edition, and then we moved to second edition, and he's guessed at a lot of stuff to try and get him right. And there's so many bits that are really specific to Bubba that actually have ended up being in lore, like the fact that he's 13, so he's young for a Tengu. Mm-hmm. Well, Tengu reach adulthood at 15. He's talking about how Bubba has grey feathers, and that's actually in here. Young Tengu have grey feathers. They turn much darker when they reach about 15 years old. So he looks right. And in terms of the feats, so we gave him his friendly claws, which were... they were basically a claws ability.
Stu's already referenced the friendly claws. I mean, well done to Colin and yourself for nailing that kind of characterization. And like I said, because we really had these discussions, flipping ages ago, and thrashed out his characters, and well done, you guys. Nailed it.
I think he has almost everything. He's got his low light vision. He's got his. I can't remember if we maybe give him dark. But no, I don't think he has. I don't think he's got dark vision.
I think he's definitely got a sharp beak.
Talon Tengu, so we can put that in there. We're going to have a look through Bubba, and we're basically, if there's anything Colin wants to change based on the stuff that's come in, then we can do that. And as we go on with it, we'll start picking Tengu feats for him rather than before he was taking human feats. And just balancing it.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know if that was in relation to Stu's question that just came through about will you be tweaking Bubba to match the new races or the bits that weren't completely right. I mean, certainly with the feats, you could probably go through and actually maybe give him some of those, because there's some pretty interesting ones in here. I like Squawk.
Squawk's amazing.
That's great. You let out an awkward squawk, ruffle your feathers, or fake some other bird-like tick to cover up a social misstep or faux pas.
It's great. So it's basically
I'm just a bird.
Yeah. So if you crit fail a deception, diplomacy, or intimidate check. So normally, if you critically failing one of those checks can be really bad. It means the person realizes the thing you're trying to do, or it's it blows the whole situation up. Whereas failure just tends to be you don't get the thing you want, but nothing happens. So you literally, if you do it, you just squawk, and the person's like, it's just a bird.
Yeah.
Just lets it go.
Amazing.
It's just wonderful. There's a lot of stuff about, you see sort of Jinx Eater being referred to here, and this is, if you like your Chinese mythology about birds and crows sort of eating bad luck, there's a lot of stuff in there, and that's always been kind of a flavour thing with Tengu. There's always been a thing in Golarion that most ships will always try and have a Tengu on the crew, because it's said that Tengu eat bad luck. That's why you sort of often see them as pirates. So you're it's supposed to be lucky to have one on there. But that's literally a thing you can do on there. So you can really mess with fortune and misfortune spells, and you can flip them around and change them. And I will be totally honest, I don't understand enough about those kind of spells and how that works to know how you would use that mechanically, but it strikes me as being something that could be really powerful if you understand how this works. The idea that you can just start manipulating luck does sound really fun, and they can kind of fly later on if you want to. So and they can turn into a giant, at high levels they can turn into a giant monster crow,
of course,
giant Tengu form,
Cro-Magnon. Terrible gag.
Some fun things.
Yeah, that second crow looks. I'm not sure I like any of the Tengu art, to be honest. That it looks a bit more like a whale or some sort of like an orca or something like that. Anyway,
I think it looks like a walnut whip.
Oh, walnut whip. Classic. So now we're going to go on to versatile heritages.
Okay.
And there's a bold bit of art. Is that a satyr, do you think?
That is a tiefling showing a bit of leg.
Oh, tiefling showing a bit of leg, of course. So the ever-popular tieflings.
So when Paizo did their survey of them, it probably will not surprise anyone to know that the ancestries that were the top ones in that were tiefling and Aasimar. They were the most popular heritages that people wanted to see early on. They really wanted that, and that's understandable. So what we're doing in here is we're getting a few versatile heritages, and we're getting a proper explanation finally of how versatile heritages are supposed to work. When the core book came out, a big thing that was said in there was that that's why half orcs and half elves were a human heritage. They're a heritage, not an ancestry in themselves. So you take a human and then you put that on them, and you get extra stuff for it. And it was always said the idea of this is that you don't just have to be half human, half something else. We want these heritages to be part of everything. So you could be a half goblin, half tiefling, or mix of these sorts of things. And with the versatile heritage, we finally get that. So now if you want to play a versatile heritage, you pick any ancestry, subject to GM approval, because Leshies and Shuni.
Yeah.
But you can be a Shuni vampire, it's in there, but talk to your GM. So you pick any ancestry, you take the base stuff for that, and then you apply the heritage. Rather than picking a heritage, you apply the versatile heritage on top of that, and that gives you access to all the new feats and extra stuff. So that is how you make a tiefling. So if you or an Aasimar or a Dusk Walker, if you want any of those, you want to be a half dwarf, a dwarf Aasimar, you can do that now. We've got all of the rules for doing that. And along with it, we get a bunch of versatile heritages as well. So we get the changeling. they're the children of hags.
They're the children of hags. Yeah, I was just remarking that the most remarkable little statement I've heard that sounds like some sort of ancient Scottish poetry, but is the line "and slag may for an annis hag." Right at the end of there, where it's describing what kind of hags that they get turned into. But interesting bit of lore. They get called back by the hag mothers.
The one that excites me a little more is the Dampier.
Yeah.
The Dampier is Blade. This is your half vampire, so you are the child of a vampire and a mortal race. And you can apply it to anything. So as Gnostic is saying, yep, Dampier Leshy. You can make Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors if you want to do that. Mm-hmm. You can have a vampiric plant. You've got your fangs. But you've also got stuff like, you've got feats for fighting undead. So if you want to make Blade, it's all there.
Yeah.
You can make your Daywalker. I made a Daywalker build Inquisitor in first edition for when we went to PaizoCon UK last time. Made the whole thing and then realised that they're not legal for society play from level 1. You have to unlock them. So just had to put him in the bin and make a gunslinger instead.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where it's like, I can make Blade from level 1. No, you can't. Nope. No. That's for the cool kids.
Then you've got your 3-planar Scions. So you've got your Aasimar, which are half celestial. You've played an Aasimar in something else before, haven't you?
I have played an Aasimar. Yes, there was an Aasimar. He wasn't. He was a cleric.
Oh, cool.
Yes. That was an Aasimar cleric. It's interesting. I'd like to see what they were a bit flat. In my opinion, really, there wasn't much to do with them. It's like, great, you're sort of semi-celestial, but your eyes glow a bit, and it's like, cool.
I've always found them to be, the bit of extra fluff that you put on top of a paladin.
Yeah.
If you want to make your ultimate paladin, sure, give them a halo, fine.
Yeah.
They've never massively appealed to me, but then neither have tieflings. So I'm definitely in the minority on that because people love tieflings. So if you want to be an SMR, you've got that all there. You get some angelic magic. You do get more interesting stuff. It's not just it used to just be a slightly better human. Like you do get some fun stuff.
Yeah, and obviously it's a tricky crossover to make, I think, because with the demons, there's always been a whole panoply of Pan to archdemons and fiends and this and that something else. Whereas with angels, if you're an angel, you're either the Archangel Gabriel or you're not. So I can see why they've struggled with that. Really, they don't have any sort of folklore archetypes to call on that are popular in sort of the mindset. You don't find angels just flitting about the woods. They're the host of heaven.
The nice thing you get with tieflings is you get a bit more control over.
How dare you, Stuart? As more about as relevant as sylphs then. I mean, to be fair, sylphs have some lovely little roleplay things you could go with them. I love the fact that they have little gusts of wind wherever they go if you play a wind sort of sylph, things like that. But it's all really roleplay flavour rather than actual things. Except for Windy Escape. Oh, Windy Escape was good.
And I think that will come back because because sylphs are in the Bestiary 2 as a monster, and they have a version of Windy Escape in that. So I think that will come back. And we know that Sylph, they're going to be called Geniekin, I think, the Elemental Kin. They're coming in the Advanced Ancestry Guide, which is next year.
They're called Geniekin.
So that we'll get some proper Sylph rules, but that's like a year away.
I don't have to call him a Geniekin, do I?
No, you don't have to call him
good, because that sounds like something from Mattel.
Oh, I like the idea you've got a genie uncle somewhere. It means I get to do a Robin Williams impression.
True.
I would quickly do the tieflings, then we'll skip back to the Dusk Walkers because I really like them. Tieflings, it gives you a little bit more control over the kind of demon that you're descended from. So do you want a devil ancestry? Do you want a fiend ancestry? And you can really pick the kind of things like, I'm going to have a tail and I get some stuff, or I'm going to have hooves and I get some stuff for that. So you can really make them varied and really change stuff up. I feel like Scott will like this very much. There's a lot of customization that you can do with this.
I've got to say, I like tieflings. Always been a fond of satyrs and all kinds of that kind of, because it's just an interesting, it's one of those classes that's kind of like, you're a bit sort of on the edges. You can imagine the kids who didn't really fit in kind of liking tieflings because, you're pretty much normal, but people don't like it because you got horns. But apart from that,
Yeah.
you're just a regular guy, but you've got horns, and it is cool. Or some with hoofed feet, but just for always wearing long skirts, so no one actually knows that they're a tiefling, and so they wear wooden shoes.
They are fun, and I think if you like tieflings, there's a lot to like in there. You're going to be very happy with this. The one I want to shout at is Dusk Walker, which was something that nobody asked for because nobody knew it existed, and it's been sort of snuck in with the other planar Scions. So a Dusk Walker is the Pharasma version of these. It's someone who's connected to the boneyard, to death. And the idea of it is that the Dusk Walkers come about due to a philosophical debate between psychopomps, who are the people who shepherd death, basically. They control whether death comes and goes, when people are meant to die and things like this. We talked a little bit about them in our Bestiary 2 review, where there are some psychopomps who track down people who get resurrected too many times and are like, no, your time's up, come on. Which are really fun.
What a name, psychopomps. It sort of sounds like a sort of early sort of 18th century kind of expression, for some sort of
it must come
quack.
from something like that. I don't know the origin of it, but it's a wonderful word. But a Dusk Walker comes from this philosophical debate between psychopomps, where there are some that believe that there are some mortals out there who do excellent work in maintaining the balance between life and death. Maybe they hunt down undead, maybe they help people pass when it's their time, or they do good work, and sometimes those people get taken before their time and they get killed. So the debate is it better to allow that person to be returned to life so they can carry on doing their good work, or is it no, we have to apply the same rules to them and it's their time and they should die? And so the solution to this are the Dusk Walkers, which are basically, when one of these people dies, every now and then they are returned to the world as a Dusk Walker, as somebody who is sent back to basically help maintain the balance between life and death. But the caveat is there are only so many of them allowed in the world at a time. It's one in, one out. So until one actually dies again, the psychopomps aren't allowed to create another one. So there's somebody who has been dead and has been brought back for a specific purpose, and I think that's really nice, And there's lots of stuff to do with dealing with spirits, to do with dealing with undead. They're very flavourful, and they're very, they feel very, very unique, and I like that. They're not just a copy of something that's in lots of other games.
Cool name as well.
It's really fun.
Dusk
Walker. I feel like that's going to be really popular just for the name.
Yeah.
Let's rattle through, because we've been doing lots of... We've got to still got to about classes. Let's rattle through the bonus. So all of the existing ancestries, they're going to get loads of extra stuff as well. So you can find loads of extra feats for all of them.
That is quite the outfit on the Dampier, I have to say.
The Dampier is great fun.
Through. Lovely sort of bottle green.
It's great, isn't it? There's some nice stuff in the elf ancestry feats. If you like elves, have a look in there. Ancestral Linguistics is quite good. It allows you, as part of your daily preparations, to basically remember a language, and they're really leaning into this idea that elves have lived many lives, because it's one of the silly things that there's always been in role-playing games, is the thing of elves are 200 years old, so how come they're still a level 1 character? Why have they learned nothing in that time? Are they just idiots for the rest of it? And they're leaning into this idea that no, elves they've lived, they've done all this stuff, but they've just forgotten it because they haven't done it for ages. And so I like this idea that maybe at some point, like Shania was a level 8 druid in the time between the story we're telling on the main show at the moment and the main show itself. Maybe in those 200 years she reached level 8, and in that time she's just become a hermit and she's just forgotten it all again, and it's just kind of slipped. And as somebody who went back to the gym after 4 months away this week and tried to do exactly the same workout I did before, I can tell you do forget stuff.
Oh yeah.
That's why I'm walking like C-3PO at the moment. That sort of stuff does disappear. So I like this idea that, oh yeah, I used to speak Goblin, but I haven't done it for 100 years, so I've forgotten it all. Hang on, but if I spend the morning thinking, maybe I can remember some of it.
And of course you've got the fact that if you spoke Goblin 200 years ago, Goblin, as everything does, would change. So, imagine if somebody started speaking 18th century English to you, you'd be like, "What? Are you all right there, mate? Do you want to put that in a bit more in English?" And be like, "Oh, sorry, is that not how goblins speak anymore? I thought that was,
It's lovely, and it makes a lot more sense having played 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, which has that mechanic as well. Other stuff, gnomes have got empathic plea, which, having talked about the grovelling mechanics for kobolds, this is very similar. You make a diplomacy check against somebody who you have yet to make any kind of hostile actions to.
Yes.
To make puppy dog eyes at them.
As Nostri says in the chat, I am so cute, I don't need a shield.
Yeah, it's so good. Like, you literally, if you critically succeed, they basically can't attack you. They have to just be like, no. And even if you just succeed, they can attack you, but they do less damage because they're just like, oh, it's so cute, I can't do it. Which is just hilarious for a full support character. If you could just be like doing this and then quietly just healing your allies, that's the first thing that's made me really want to play a gnome. That just jumps out at me. And they've got a feat called Razzle Dazzle, which isn't amazing, but I love that there's an ability called Razzle Dazzle. Goblins, you're going to get loads of weird stuff that lets you get extra singing. You can become squishy. There's lots of other fun stuff with the Ancestries. There's just extra options here. Common backgrounds. So if you want to have some more backgrounds, what the common ones do is they fill out a lot of other backgrounds that people have been wanting for their characters. So if you want to be an ex-bandit, great, you can be a bandit now. What have they got? Barbers. Cultist is probably one that's been
Insurgent
quite popular.
has caught my eye, where you're an ex sort of freedom fighter, and you can make up whatever cause it was, and whether it succeeded or didn't, or you just got sort of cynical with it all. That's a cool start.
Mm-hmm. I think Squire is a good one. Squire is going to be a popular one for if you want to play a champion. There'll be a lot of stuff in there for that. Then we've got the rare backgrounds. Rare backgrounds are ones that you can use with GM approval. And what they are is they're kind of like self-contained little plot bundles for your character. So you've got stuff like the Amnesiac. Amnesiac's really fun because you get 2 ability boosts that are free boosts that you get to choose. And then one is chosen by the GM. And that is and it's supposed to be a hint as to what your actual former life was. Lots of fun stuff in there. The other one is the one that has the artwork on it. Wonderful artwork of a woman with a sword climbing down.
I paused for quite a long time on that while you were talking about other things. It's a fantastic picture.
That's to do with the royalty background, where you can literally be a princess who sneaks out at night to go adventuring. Which, yes,
great.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want that. And when we get into the Vigilante archetype, then all sorts of stuff will come up from that. So, shall we talk about classes?
Yes.
Having spent nearly an hour going through the Ancestries.
Yes, we won't be able to go through all of this book. It is 274 pages of goodness.
I know.
This is more to give you an impression and to make you want to go and get it yourself. Because I think, and like you said at the beginning, I didn't jump in because obviously we had a bit of a delay at the beginning, but this is a book that you wouldn't necessarily read cover to cover, but you would definitely. This is a great resource to dip into, and if you're making characters for other people or looking for your own character and stuff like that, it's fantastic. It's loads of good ideas.
It's one of those, and one thing we should also say, I should have said it at the start. From today, I can't believe they managed to get it done in time, but this book is now currently on Hero Lab. And it's on Archives of Nethys, so you can go onto Archives of Nethys now and read all of these rules for free. So you can start making characters from today if you want to, which is amazing that they got it done day and date. That's really good.
Yeah.
Let's do the classes then. So there's one thing, and I went back and forth on whether this is a criticism of the book or not, but it is an important thing to understand about this book. And if you're somebody who loves Pathfinder, then with all of its eccentricities and complexities, then this will not be a problem for you. But if you're somebody who is a more casual player, this may be intimidating for you. And you need to understand that this is an advanced player's guide. So these character classes that we're going to be talking about here, they have mechanics that take a little bit of getting used to. And if you want to put your time into understanding that class, you're going to get a lot from it and you're going to really enjoy it. But if you're somebody who is like, I wouldn't recommend any of these 4 classes as your first character.
Right.
They need a bit of getting used to, and they have a lot of extra abilities. I built a catfolk swashbuckler. That's a mouthful. Swashbuckler. A catfolk swashbuckler, just as a little test as soon as the book arrived from Paizo last week, and the starting abilities don't all fit onto the standard character sheet. You know, the standard character sheet that says this is what you get at level 1, this is what you get at level 2.
Yeah.
You get more at level 1 than will fit onto that sheet.
Wow.
So it may require some specialised character sheets for some of these things.
I mean, because the Pathfinder character sheets are a weighty tome in itself anyway. If you have the full thing, it's 8 pages, I think, isn't it? I mean, you can
that's
cut
the campaign sheet.
Yeah, you can cut bits out of it and stuff like that. But if you want the full effect, it's big.
But you've got a lot of abilities in here, so be prepared to do some work to understand your class if you want to get the most out of this. The good news is, I think they are all worth it if you put your time into it. I think they've all got stuff in there that is really interesting. And of course, because this book has to be a big book, you've then got loads of class bonuses for all of the other classes as well, which we'll rattle through. Right, Investigator. We'll go straight in with the top role. The Investigator is my favourite one of these 4, which I did not expect because I just didn't care about the Investigator.
A very tan Sean Connery. It is like a sort of Sean Connery, actually.
He's got a bit of a Sean Connery vibe, hasn't he? The Investigator was put in there because they straight away, the Oracle and the Witch went in straight away because they were really popular. Then they wanted a skill class. The Investigator is, in first edition, one of the biggest skill classes that you have, so that went in. And then they wanted a combat class, so the Swashbuckler went in. I think someone said a while ago, are Gunslingers in here? And it seemed unusual that Gunslingers didn't make it, given that they're a very Pathfinder focused thing. They're one of the things that makes Pathfinder really stand out is the fact that you can have a person with firearms in it. The reason for it was basically that a gunslinger comes with its own mechanics. It comes with introducing firearms and rules for firearms into second edition, which is quite a bit of stuff. And if there's one thing that we've really noticed about this book is it is a big book. It is jam-packed, and there just wasn't space to add an entire chapter on how firearms work. So gunslingers don't make it in this one.
Yeah. They'll
be there at some point when there's the space to have the rules for them. I think it is very likely that they will be an archetype there'll be an archetype, so you'll be able to put it onto another class, and you can have a paladin with a gun or something like that.
He's a paladin with a gun.
So it's going to be good. So what the big stuff about the investigators are all about following up leads and following up clues. So you're going to get one of your key abilities is called Pursuer Lead, which means you find, it's a bit like Hunt Prey, but it applies to circumstances and stuff. So maybe you find like a bloodstain on a ground. You can then make that one of your lines of investigation, and you basically focus onto that, and then you're going to get bonuses to any rolls you make to follow up that investigation. And you can have different threads active at a time, so you can have like 3 different investigations running at once. It could be something like when you found the body in the bottom of the snake pit in the Temple of Razmir, you find that ring. An investigator would be like, that is going to become my lead, and then they're getting bonuses all the time to try and unravel who this person was and what happened to them. And anytime the GM knows they're making a check that's to do with that, they're going to give them bonuses to it, which I think that's really fun.
That's really cool.
The other thing which makes them, which is just an amazing ability, which I really love, is called Devise the Stratagem. And this was because they wanted to make the investigator fight like Robert Downey Jr. does in the Sherlock Holmes movies, where he envisions the whole fight before it happens and then does it. So Devise a Stratagem allows you to basically make your attack roll, and you can use your intelligence mod, I think. So you can make your attack roll, but you're making it in your head. So you get to roll the attack, see what the result is, and then decide whether you want to make the attack or not, or whether you want to do something else instead. So if you've rolled a natural 1, you can be like, well, if I do that, I'm going to get a fumble. So I just don't attack this round, and I'm going to spend this round doing skill checks or drinking a potion or casting doing a quick spell or something like that. Wow. Whereas if it's natural 20, you can be like, yeah, I'm going to, all right, I do that. And if that attack then hits, you get to stack a load of other bonuses and pile a load of other feats and things onto it. Isn't that's just lovely, isn't it?
It is lovely. I mean, that's very, very powerful. As a thing, like, I'm not saying it's because obviously you wouldn't, if you're just rolling terribly, it's not going to give you natural 20s, but it's very time efficient.
It is. It does take an action, so it means your attacks effectively take 2 actions, but just having that ability to just be able to take that thing out of it, I just think that's really lovely. I think that's to be able to decide whether you're going to, and it I like that it sets you up so if you roll really low, it completely changes your turn. So in your head you're always thinking, okay, what are my 2 options? If I know that I'm going to be good at attacking this turn, then I just do that. But what would I do tactically if I know that I'm not going to be able to be good at hitting people? What should I think of? So it's going to make you think of different things. In terms of subclasses, you've got an alchemy one, so you've got your methodology. So this is the sort of thing that you go into. So you can have alchemy, because there were good alchemists in the first one. Empiricism, which is all about dealing with stats and data. You have forensic medicine, which I like, so you can build a coroner, which I think is great fun. And you have interrogation. And interrogation gives you a pointed question, which is like your Columbo ability. So you can, while you're talking to somebody, you can make a diplomacy check against their will DC. And if you roll high on it, it forces them to just blurt out a piece of information. I think that's really lovely, isn't it? And it's like, so they have to answer your question, and you can just trip people up with it. All these sorts of mechanics, they're just really fun. And then they get tons of skills, they get tons of bonuses. Let's move on from them because they're, I love them and I want to play them. There's also a wonderful piece of art of the Investigator holding up some kind of purple-tongued monster by his sword cane with just this wonderful look of, see?
It's quite the swashbuckling sort of Investigator there.
It's great, isn't it? And there's stuff in it that sort of says that the GM has to point out when you enter a room if you've spotted something useful, which is nice. I love the coroner artwork, the rat with his medicine bag. I just think they're great. I think they're really fun.
That's tremendous.
Let's do the Oracle. Straight away, you're going to see we've got a new iconic Oracle. It's a Tengu. It looks way better than all of the other Tengu.
Better than all the other Tengus. Look how cool he looks. Or she.
That's because this is Wayne Reynolds, who's the lead artist for when you see Pathfinder stuff and all the iconics. He does a lot of design on them. He's great for this stuff. He's really good for detail because he's a real nerd about medieval weaponry and equipment. He loves kit, which for a game about amassing stuff effectively, which is what role-playing games are, that is a great skill to have. So he's really good at having all the extra bits and bobs. So the Oracle is you're tied into a mystical force. You cast spells, but the thing is that you have a curse, basically. You just have this power that is channeled into you, which makes you powerful, but the more you draw on it, the more disadvantage you get. It seems kind of complicated, and it takes a bit of getting used to, but once you start playing it, you'll like it. It was one of the most popular classes in first edition.
Right.
But ever so slightly, it was also quite popular because it was a very good class to take a dip into. There were a lot of builds where you just take one level of Oracle and then you never touch it again because it gives you a load of stuff.
Right.
And so this is all about trying to make it feel unique and really exciting in itself and on its own. So the way your curse works is you pick a mystery. So the mysteries are things like ancestors, battle, bones, cosmos, flames, life, law, and tempest, and that maybe gives you an idea of what some of them give you. They will give you special abilities, and they'll give you very powerful focus spells that you can cast to do with those sort of things. So law will be about learning information, flames will be about setting everything on fire. But as you use that, it starts to trigger your curse. Things start to happen and they don't always disadvantage you, but they really focus you on a particular thing. I'll give you an example. Things like the ancestors. So you've got voices in your head from past ancestors that give you information and they tell you things to do, and so they give you hints and they make you better at certain stuff. The more you use that, though, the more one particular ancestor will start to take an interest, and you roll randomly to see who it is. So it might be that your ancestor was a fighter, was a great warrior, and so that ancestor, as the curse gets better, starts getting stronger, that ancestor will start giving you bonuses to your combat abilities, which is great if you want to fight in combat. But you might be like, no, we really need to solve this riddle. I need skills right now. We're trying to unlock this door. But your ancestor is just there in your head constantly being like, no, fight this person. And so you're getting penalties to all of your other stuff because the ancestor's trying to push you in a particular way.
That's really cool.
It's great. Or you might get things like, your vision starts to go with the flames. The battle one is great. The battle one makes you much stronger in combat, but then starts applying loads of penalties, which are alleviated if you make a strike action. So if you hit someone, all of the curses disbenefits go away. But when you're not fighting people, you start to just be really a bit rubbish. Wow. Which is just a great alternative barbarian build, I think.
Yeah.
And so many other things. So there are kind of, if you want to sort of spellcasty, there's so many different builds with it. You can make them blastery, you can make them into fighters. There's a lot you can do with them. There's a load of unpacking to do. That's the vibe of the Oracle. Next one is the Swashbuckler, which I know you will be excited about because you have played a Swashbuckler in the past, haven't you? You're in first edition.
I have played a Swashbuckler, yes. They're great fun class. Kind of roguey, but a little bit more sort of, just an interesting take on it. That's certainly what they used to be.
What would you have changed about the first edition Swashbuckler? What would you change about them?
Well, it was interesting. There was a lot of paths you could take to customize the Swashbuckler, but there was also a lot of missteps you could take. So if you took a feat in this, well, then that's ruined that, and you can't do this, you can't do that, and it would have been quite nice to have a few maybe clearer paths, a little bit more of a sort of defined way about them. I'm not sure. I mean, I really like Blacklock, but he was just a standard Swashbuckler. But there were so many. We could be like Blade Wind and this and that and all kinds of different mix and matches.
The big criticism of Swashbucklers in first edition is that although they've got you all these tools to say, you can swing on chandeliers and you can do lots of cool stuff, ultimately the best thing you can do as a Swashbuckler is walk up to the most powerful thing in the room and stand absolutely still and constantly parry and attack, constantly parry and riposte,
yes,
and just deal insane single target damage to it until it's dead. And if you're swinging around on ropes and things, it's not really the best way to play.
No.
That was the kind of the criticism. So this is about trying to find ways to encourage you to play in different ways and to embrace that swashbuckling ethos rather than just being this sort of mirror that does damage. And so they've added in a whole load of other stuff. The first thing that's really changed is panache. In first edition, panache is just a resource. It's just a pool of points that you have and you spend them to do abilities. In second edition, panache is a state. Panache is a state of being. You either have panache or you don't have panache. If you have panache, all of your panache abilities are available to you, and the powerful ones will cause you to drop out, to lose panache. So as a swashbuckler, you are constantly trying to gain panache. Once you're in that state, you then want to do your big attack that will let you do that. And the way you gain panache is by doing particularly daring things. So it's about the standard way is like if you tumble past somebody successfully without triggering an attack of opportunity, you're going to gain panache. So straight away, you're always trying to provoke attacks of opportunity so that you can dodge them because you'll get it. But then based on the style that you choose, you're going to gain all sorts of other ways of doing it. So you might be a battle dancer where you're trying to duck and dive around. You might be a braggart where you're trying to a bit like with the what were they called, the firebrands, where you're trying to show off all the time and trying to intimidate people. A fencer where you're trying to parry. Gymnast where you're jumping around. And my favourite one, the wit, which is the Monkey Island build. So all of your abilities are based around you insulting people and coming up with clever ways of putting them down. And you gain an ability when you're the wit, a new feat, which is later on called bon mot, which is you make a scathing insult against your opponent, where you make a roll against their DC, and basically you try to insult them, and if you successfully insult them, then they take penalties. And the way they get around that, they can either sit out the duration of feeling shit because you've insulted them, or they can try and get rid of it themselves by spending an action to insult you back. They get to roll an I know you are, but what am I kind of check against it, and if they succeed, then they shrug off the insult.
I am rubber, you are glue.
I know, it's just great, isn't it? It is literally Monkey Island. But like as an example of that, every time you successfully use that ability to insult your opponent, you enter panache. So suddenly all of your powerful abilities are involved because you've insulted someone. That's where you get to use so you get bonuses to your damage and everything like that. So very different kind of things. I should say the parry and riposte is there, but it is like you're no longer going to be simply parrying the dragon's jaws every turn and doing loads of damage back to it. Instead, the riposte works. You get it at 3rd level, I think. An opportune riposte means anytime somebody critically fails. So if someone fumbles, you get to make an attack against them. Much more balanced, and you're not going to be using it all the time. And you're going to be getting loads of bonuses to your AC at the same time if you're using a rapier. So that's how they've kind of balanced it out there. You can dodge, you can parry, you can do all of these sort of things. They've got a great ability called One for All. You make a diplomacy check, and you can use that as your roll to aid an ally. So normally if you want to use the aid action, you have to roll the same check that the other person is doing generally. And if you get very high, maybe you'll succeed at it. With One for All, you basically make a diplomacy check to make a really dramatic, inspiring statement. And then you can use that to help somebody in their turn as the aid action. The aid action is quite tricksy in 2nd edition until you get to higher levels. And I played around with it, and I worked out by 3rd level you can make it so that it's impossible for you to critically fail, so you can never put a penalty on it. And then by about 5th or 6th level, you can get the assurance feat, bolt it onto that, and you are automatically succeeding every turn. Like, just any turn, you can just be like, haha, you get a bonus to your next attack as one action. And when you do that, you enter panache.
Nice.
So you get that, which is just so many different things you can do. Yeah, just said, what does this mean to the future of the Scoundrel Rogue? I can tell you when I did Tales from the 20 side and made Augusto Ramirez, the Scoundrel Rogue, who was like a musketeer, which Simon has done some amazing art of, you can see on Twitter. I built him as that. I was trying to build a swashbuckler using the rogue stuff. I would say the Scoundrel Rogue is probably now, it's not going to be your swashbuckler class anymore. What it's going to be is your skill hungry. Like, there's a different way of doing it. You're going to be like a swashbuckler, but you're going to be more focused on skills and your backstabs and things like that. So you're going to have to lean more on your rogue side of things. If you want to play a musketeer, this is the class to do it with. The feat for 2nd level, called After You voluntarily move to the bottom of the initiative tracker. You go last in the round, and as a result of that, you immediately gain panache, because you allow everyone to go first, and then you get flair for doing it. It's just, they're great fun. So
tremendous.
Very different.
Very different.
Yeah, I think really flavourful. I think there's some real fun stuff you can do.
Yeah,
with that.
definitely. Should we move on, because we are? Oh, it's going.
Let's
we're
move
going
on. We'll do the
long.
witch.
We'll do the witch, and then I think there's something else you want to talk about, isn't there, Dan?
Scott's favourite class. Scott loves the witch, and
well, to be fair,
you will love.
Everyone loves the witch, because the witch, in certain ways, is massively overpowered. Has this been addressed?
Slumber Hex.
Yep, Slumber Hex.
Slumber Hex is not the game-ending exploit that it used to be.
Slumber Hex.
You can't just go through an entire AP going slumber coup de grace.
Yeah, and that we did that to some of the most powerful monsters you could throw at us, and we just started like, oh yeah, Scott just went to sleep. It's like, cool,
yep.
We kill it. There you go.
So with the witch, you gain your power from a patron that you don't fully understand, and you unlock that basically as you level up. You take lessons, and they are to do with your patron, and those lessons, depending on which ones you pick, will unlock specific hexes. Hexes are focus spells, so they use focus points, then you regain them with 10 minutes of refocusing. But you also get hex cantrips based on some very broad ideas of what your patron is, and they're hexes that you can just constantly use. So you don't get as many spells as a standard spellcaster. But you can get them from different styles of magic, and you get some little cantrips in there as well. You also are the best character at having familiars. You get loads of familiar abilities, and your familiar is your spell book, so you get your spells from your familiar. You will be very happy to know people who played 1st edition and constantly had to just keep their familiar inside a box to stop it dying because it has all your spells in it. If your familiar dies, your patron just gives you a new one tomorrow. You get one when there's none of this wait a year and a day and you can have a new familiar. Like you wake up and your fox is there waiting for you, or a new fox arrives.
I'm loving the sort of Japanese kitsune sort of fox familiar there with the 9 tails. It's very cool.
It's good, isn't it? All the stuff you like is there. You can cackle. You can get a cauldron to brew spells. At the very top level, at level 20, you can get a chicken hut that will follow you around. Loads of fun stuff there. So if you like witches, I think you will enjoy it. They're not as horribly powerful, but they're much more flavourful. I think you'll really enjoy them. They do feel different to everything else. And there are some advanced familiars in this book as well. So if you want to have a pseudo-dragon, fairy dragon, or an imp as a familiar, you can do that, and the best way to do that is as a witch. We then get archetypes without wanting to spend forever on them because there are loads. The whole idea of archetypes was to get rid of this idea of a multi-classing system and make it a way for you to specialise. And it's kind of how it worked in first edition, except you had to pick your archetype really early on, and it was a bit clunky. With this, it's just something you take if you want to specialise your character further on stuff. And there are multi-class ones. You can take you can take the alchemist. You can take anyone. You can take a fighter one and get some fighter stuff. But it's not what you have to do. I'm aware, by the way, that we've sort of skipped over all the additional. There are loads of extra feats for all of the existing classes as well. So if you want to have those in there, you can get those in.
Yeah, I'm sort of panning through them with the PDF just to give people a sense of, just there's a lot there. A lot there for all the classes that you know and love. Rogues, we've got.
We're getting evil champions. If playing an evil campaign is your bag, if you wanted to play those, then you can play. So you've got the Tyrant, the Desecrator, and the good old Anti-Paladin. If you want to play any of them, they're all in there. The one I particularly like is the Tyrant has an ability which forces their opponent to kneel, and if they don't kneel, they take damage. I think that's
fantastic.
Lovely. We don't really play evil characters, but it's there if you want to do it. Lots of fun stuff with those. Some new powerful druid stuff. Combat assessment for fighters is really nice. You hit someone, you get a free knowledge check straight away to learn something about them, which is a very fightery thing. The drunken monk stances, stumbling stances there now. If you want to play a drunken master, that's in there. A couple of new rogue rackets. Eldritch Trickster, get some magic going on there. That would have been good for Big Mike. She had that kind of vibe. And Mastermind, so you're a criminal genius. You can play Moriarty and you can outwit your opponents. Animal companions, there's an ape animal companion now. We can make a proper Philippe. Finally, Philippe's been a bear for the whole of second edition this whole last year. He's been a bear with a couple of trait differences. Now he can be an ape. Yeah. And I'm very happy about that.
I've got to say that the picture of the orc assassin, I mean, that is the least subtle assassin I have ever seen in all of my role-playing days. Good Christ. If that guy walked into the tavern, you'd be like, whoa, it's time to go.
Well, that's an assassin.
Yeah, look at him. I mean, he's just utterly ridiculous. But in a glorious way.
Anyone can take any of these feat dedications and you can use it to specialise your character in particular things. There are so many in these that I love and that I would want to base whole things around. The Beastmaster is amazing. The Beastmaster lets you have multiple animal companions and it runs it a little bit like a JRPG where basically you can have up to 4 animal companions but you only have one with you at any given time. The rest are considered to be just off screen somewhere just doing animal stuff. And as you go along you can get abilities to basically like mid-fight have your animal companions switch out. And then call extra and they can all become huge monsters. So if you want to be like, this is the closest thing to the summoner that we've had. If you want to be the person with loads of creatures around you just throwing them at it, the Beastmaster does that. And it's the Beastmaster.
I mean, it's the Beastmaster, and it's a great piece of artwork with the sort of lady standing there with her giant badger, but she is wearing pelts and furs and teeth and stuff. So, like, if I was one of her creatures, I'd be like, what's going to happen to me then?
You've got stuff like Bounty Hunter and the Archer and things like that seem very fightery, but then when you think that you can apply that to a wizard, that suddenly becomes really interesting. You know, you're like, oh, okay, so I still get because you still get your spells. These replace your class feats. So you could still be a wizard getting all of the spells you were, but then you're also gaining feats that let you track down people and assemble a posse and things like that. And it's like, oh, okay, now I'm a spell-casting bounty hunter. That's quite fun. The Cavalier, First edition, it was a class in itself. Second edition, it's an archetype. You can apply it to anything. You could put it on a champion and you get a very similar thing to the Cavalier in first edition, or a fighter. But you could also be a Cavalier Swashbuckler, or or an Investigator Cavalier. Gives you loads of put up a banner, defend people, ride around on a horse, all that sort of fun stuff. They're really fun. Celebrity, it seems fun. It seems quite a feat-heavy thing to be able to get some of those abilities. I like the idea of having a famous character. I'm not sure I would ever take any of these things, although there's probably some fun stuff for a bard in there. The dandy, quite campaign specific, but if you want to be, high society. Dragon Disciples, mad. That's been there. That's been in this game. It's probably an old D&D thing, I think. Dual Weapon Warrior, some excellent catfolk art there. Got a big panther with 2 curved blades. That looks really cool. Fun way to specialise in that. The Duelist, if you want to specialise even further with your Swashbuckler, or indeed make someone else who just likes fighting duels, you can. The Eldritch Archer, my goodness, that's been in role-playing games forever. Put magic on your arrows, shoot them at people. Familiar Master, you want to get really good with familiars, do more than just draining them? Well, you can now. You can have all sorts of crazy familiars.
Awful. I feel like writing Jason a letter and just being like, rename that goddamn thing. It's just so bad.
I should say that the Witch has got a familiar ability, which is great, where you can just phase your familiar out of reality for a short while if it's in danger. I was like, that would be so useful for a wizard.
Let's see.
Gladiators, Herbalists, Horizon Walker, it's like a scout. Linguist, I've always wanted to make a language build. I think that could be really fun. I reckon there's something in that. And again with the Lore Master, abilities, characters that can just get information from the GM, I think can be really useful. I reckon with the right player that could be really
they're really
powerful.
Trying to make librarians seem exciting now, aren't they, with that picture and stuff? It's just like, no, hey, look.
Librarians are exciting.
You are no longer a librarian, Dan. And it wasn't exciting even when you were.
Let's not blink yet, all right? There's not a lot of acting work around
well,
at the moment.
True.
Who knows where we'll end up? It's fine, there's not a lot of libraries around at the moment either. The Marshal. I love the Marshal because I love support classes. The Marshal, just all of their abilities make your allies stronger. You just give tactics out to people. You're going to get loads of bonus. All your abilities are going to give your mates bonuses, make the rest of the party stronger, and there are lots of feats in there. Some of these archetypes only have a few feats. The Marshal's got loads, so you could pick loads of things as you're leveling up. If you want to be your party's leader, the nice thing with archetypes is you can fill out levels where your class feats are not very interesting, which there's always a lot of class feats. But if you're like, well, I don't really fancy the fighter feats at this level, okay, cool, let's take a level of Marshal, and then you can start buffing everyone around us as well. Martial Artist, if you want to do a bit of Kung Fu and you're not a monk, you can do that. Mauler, I think, is just about... Mauler might be quite a good thing for Fulton, actually. Just get really good with two-handed weapons, just beating people up, knocking them down. Yeah. The Medic, loads of healing, pile extra healing on there, and it's healing that you get that isn't just magical, so you can do other things like that. Doctor's Visitation lets you basically stride and treat wounds for an action, so you can just walk straight up to somebody and heal them, which is quite useful. Got Pirate, obviously. Got to have a Pirate. Tengu there with his big hat. Poisoner, Ritualist. Okay, rituals are a whole thing in their own in second edition. If you know rituals, you'll probably find some really clever players will make some incredibly powerful builds using a ritualist, because rituals are things like summoning and binding demons or raising the dead. Interestingly, my favourite first edition spell is back in this book. Reincarnate is a new thing, and yes, it does bring people back as a random ancestry. So have fun accidentally bringing somebody back as a Shuni one day. That is now possible. So expect me now to immediately give you the opportunity to do that in the game, and then aggressively try and kill one of you so I can see it in action.
Well, the only time we ever did it, they came back as a human. Literally,
it was so disappointing.
Roll a D100. It's like the 7 points that you could come back as human. They did. It's like, oh, well, that worked.
Like, what? No.
You can come back as a mud man and stuff. It's ridiculous.
No, I want something crazy. Come back as a Leshy. No. Scouts. The Scouts. That was one of those fans. Scouts Charge is really good. So a scout's charge is like a sort of, you meander around the battlefield and then just suddenly charge someone. So it's a 2 actions. You get to stride up and attack somebody, but on the way you get to make a feint attempt against them as well. So you try and convince them that you're not going after them, and then suddenly you hit them.
Nice.
Which, if you combine that with sneak attack, suddenly that becomes really nice. Like, you just look like you're going somewhere else, and then just suddenly you ambush somebody out of nowhere. That sounds really fun.
Cool.
And it brings back the scout class that was in, I think it was 3.5, the scout class, where you could, where you got damage bonuses if you kept moving. And I really like that. It keeps making you move around. Scroll Trickster, get good with scrolls. Scrounger, that's very goblin-y. Build stuff out of crap you find lying around. The Sentinel, if you just want to be a very much like the piece of art, if you want to be a block, a weeble that sits on the ground and does not move, then you get that. Shadow Dancer's an old school one, so you're jumping around through the shadows. Snare Crafter, very koboldy. Make traps. Talisman Dabbler, another really specific thing. Talisman Magic, I don't really know it. I've looked at it a bit. It looks pretty powerful, so if you want to get great with talismans, making little trinkets, attaching them to your kit, giving them to people, that's going to be something that will be you'll find a lot to like in that. And that's some crazy weird art, the Talisman
Yeah, he looks
Dabbler.
great. Or she, who knows?
Proper creepy. It's like, is that eyeballs on the sleeve? Is that, I don't know. That's an example of that slightly sketchy, washed out art style that I actually really like in this one. I think that one's really nice. The Vigilante, controversial character class in first edition. You are Batman, so you have 2 identities. You switch between them. Ross played one at PaizoCon UK, played the iconic one at high levels, and it was stupidly powerful because you can just backflip over people and then get damage bonuses, and it was crazy. But if you want to play a superhero, you can do that. But now you don't have to. It doesn't have to be your entire character choice. It doesn't have to be your entire life is based around this. You can just take a couple of bits of it, and you can be like, okay, I'm mostly going to be a sorcerer, but also I moonlight as this dashing defender of liberty or a master criminal. So you get your dual. You can switch identities out, and then as you level up, you can set up a safe house. You can have all these sort of extra little bonuses. I will be interested to see people play with that. As I said earlier, I think this will pair very nicely with the royalty background. I like the idea of a princess who literally has an ulterior identity that is their adventuring side. I think there could be some really fun stuff with this. It's uncommon, which means check with your GM. I think working with your GM, I think you could make something really fun with it. It is inherently still quite a stupid character class for a fantasy role-playing game, but I think it could be made to work if you know what you're doing with it. So I would be really interested to see what people do with this class. Your mileage will vary. And then you get a Viking and a weapon. Oh, the weapon improviser is really fun. Weapon improviser means you're really good at fighting with whatever you find around you. So you get skills that let you just smash someone in the face with a chair. Which, for any wrestling fans, you'll enjoy that. I don't know mechanically if it's a great build, but I just like the art of the person with a stool over their head having things. In terms of the rest of the book, as you would expect from a Pathfinder book, there are loads of feats. There are loads of new spells. There are loads of new bits of equipment, stuff like a sword cane. That's nice. Finally get a sword cane in there. We are not going to run through all of that because, that's the sort of stuff that
I
you
would
want to
not
go
let
through
you
yourself.
run through that. I mean, looking at the feats list when you're picking a feat is enough. I think actually going through it bit by bit, everyone's feat, that is, it's a lovely sunny day. Let's get some vitamin D.
The nice thing is that the feats lists are less intimidating in second edition because it's very rare that there's not like just one big feat list that you have to just pick something from 1,000 different options. You will already have been narrowed down quite a bit by the character choices you're making, and then you will pick from a short list within that of what your things are. So although there are all of these options in here, actually by the time you get to choosing, your options are much more limited, which is one of the nice things from that.
Which is good.
It's what you need. It's the whole ethos of second edition, really, is to make it sort of more straightforward. And then, if you're an alchemist, there are loads of new alchemical items in here as well. So I'm going to be directing Ross to this book to go and have a look through it, because Beelzebub just gained a whole load of new fun things that he can use to accidentally blow his friends up with. So I'm sure you'll all be very excited about that.
I do quite like, just going through the spells list, some of the characters have been introduced to earlier in the book, casting all sorts of different spells. So it's not just, you've got the Investigator casting a rope spell, and you've got someone else casting spells. So it's making spells for everybody, not just for a select few.
Exactly, and it's one of those things that's much easier to dip into now with the ability of things. There you go. So that is the Advanced Player's Guide. If you are... I would agree. I think that it is, if you are a GM, if you are serious about Pathfinder, it's well worth picking up. It is an essential book because there is so much cool stuff in there, and there are so many cool things about second edition that were in the core book, like the Archetypes system, like the versatile heritages, which we were promised a year ago when second edition came out. They are now really they're coming to fruition now, and they're starting to feel like the game that we always wanted them to be. So we're finally getting to see those. It is, like I say, it is an advanced guide. So if you are a casual player, you do not need this book. If you just want to play a fighter, or if you want to play one of the core classes, you absolutely don't have to pick this book up. But if you find that you're not able to build the kind of character you want to build from it, then you'll find some stuff in there that you will like. How do you feel, James? Excited about the APG?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those things where you can have a quick flick through and then see stuff like we have, like the rat folk look interesting, and I quite like an investigator rat folk with and let's throw a different archetype in there as well. So let's have a sort of bounty hunting, investigating rat folk who and you can see these sorts of stories developing, which I think is the important thing with any player guides, to inspire you to be like, that gives me an idea, and then it's doing its job properly. And I think it does great. It's a great job.
It will do nothing. I can tell you that the chances of me carrying on playing the Society character I rolled for this weekend are probably quite slim, because I'm already thinking about a load of new characters I want to roll.
Definitely.
Based on some of this stuff. I will quickly, before we wrap this up, because it's not the only book that's out today, we're not going to do full reviews of everything, because it's taken us nearly 2 hours to do this review. And I think it needed it because it's a big book. Something. There's other stuff that is out. Agents of Edgewatch is out, which is the new adventure path about City Watch. As has been said, that the adventure path where you play cops is problematic for some people. They have tried to address it with the player's guide for it, which allows you to mod it so that it's not about the police if you're uncomfortable with that. I mean, I would say that we are not the people to comment on whether that adventure path is problematic or not. If it's problematic to you, then it's problematic. That's all there is to it. But it is there, it is out, and there are ways for you to play it in a way that suits you, and that we hope you enjoy it. We won't be playing it on the show. For Starfinder, there's the Starship Operations Manual, so you get loads of stuff about space combat. It very excitingly has the squadron rules, so you can do dogfights now. You can have your X-Wing thing rather than it being sort of Star Trek style, big lumbering ships moving around. You can fire around with that. It has the very much anticipated Voltron rules, where you can have lots of small ships that transform into one big ship. That sounds really fun as well. I haven't read the whole book, but I've had a skim through and looked at all the artwork of all the new starships, and that looks really fun. And the last one that I wanted to talk about very briefly is Lost Omens Legends, which is the other second edition book that's coming out.
That I have actually managed to conjure up the Lost Omens Legends right next to you. So it is. You are currently being displayed next to you. What a picture on the front!
It's great, isn't it? So Lost Omens Legends is a book about some of the famous NPCs, effectively, some of the famous figures from Pathfinder, some of the famous characters that exist in the world of Golarion. And the reason I wanted to kind of point this out was that I think this is the best Pathfinder book that almost no one will read, because it was the one I was least excited about. And it doesn't feel essential, because how often is your character really going to meet the Queen of Cheliax? If you're GMing a game, do you really want to use any of these characters? Are they going to be the ones that you're going to put into your campaign? It is a really good book. Like, having read a bit of it, it's just really well written. They brought lots of freelancers in. It's really interesting. It fleshes out the what I would say was the quite short Lost Omens World Guide with a lot more information. If you want to know about Cheliax, a great way to know about Cheliax is reading all about Queen Abigail, and how she rules that, because you'll find loads more about the world in there. And it has loads of really interesting little tidbits in it. My favourite bit is in the Cheliax section. It's got an example of an infernal contract. So it's got some rules for how you might enter into an infernal contract with the royal family, which will give you things, but then they'll call it back. But then it has a whole page which is an example of an infernal contract. And it's all written in proper legalese. They got Ron Landine, who is a qualified lawyer, as well as a writer for Paizo and developer for Paizo. They got him to write it. So it literally reads like a legal contract, and if you properly read the whole thing through, it's really boring, because it's deliberately meant to be. It's this whole contract, and if you get to the end of it and you really understand it, you are like, oh no, I have sold my soul to the devil if I sign this. But it's just buried in all this small print. It's tremendous, and it's just... there's so much lovely stuff in there. You absolutely do not need this book if you are running a campaign. It is all extra flavour. But if you love Golarion, you're going to really enjoy it. You will read this book cover to cover. So do not let it pass you by just because you think that you don't want to use these characters in it. I think you'll still find some stuff in there that you will like.
And I think it's very much just an indication of how rich the world of Golarion is, and how much, if you want to put in there, it's available. It's taken us nearly 2 hours to go over a couple of things. I mean, it really is. We'd be here all day if we went through everything. And also, I think there's an element of discovery. Dive in there, have a look, see what conjures up. You might see a feat you liked and build a class around a character around that, or just to pick something like a rat folk and be like, I want to be a rat folk, a Yosoki, and base everything around that. I think that's some of the joy, really. Picking one thing you like and then building the rest.
So dive in. If you've enjoyed this, we're going to put the audio of this out on the podcast feed, so you'll be able to listen to that as well. If you've enjoyed this, please let us know, and maybe we'll do more reviews. We get sent stuff by Paizo a lot, and I'm always trying to find ways to get it in to justify the fact they've sent us it. If we can do reviews then and they're useful to you, and we're not just doing them for the heck of it, then please let us know, because we would love to do some more of them, and we'd love to talk about this sort of stuff a bit more, and do a bit more Twitch as well, because we like a bit of that. James, do you want to promote your Twitch channel before we go off?
I suppose could do. I know a lot of the Dangerlings have already been watching, so thanks very much. So it's twitch.tv/Foxy_Lockhart, and go working on a schedule to do a regular thing. I play some Magic and things like that, but something that's also been quite popular is playing Fighting Fantasy. Remember those? On Tuesday evenings at 7:00 GMT. So we're basically playing together a fighting fantasy novel, and where you were the hero, so we're playing it together. But do pop in, and we're going to try and make the DCP Twitch channel a little bit more of a thing, so we'll try and get that chat working and other things. But thanks so much for joining us. It's been great.
Have some fun time. Whatever you are doing over Gen Con weekend, have fun with it. Obviously, some of us weren't to be there. I should be there right now, having day one of Gen Con, and I'm not. I'm sat at home, but I'm still having fun. I'm going to be playing some games later on online for it. Actually, later on today, I'm going to be playing the first of those games. I'm going to be playing a bit of Starfinder. So if you're doing Gen Con online, have a wonderful time. Whatever you are doing, have a good time. Stay safe. Please enjoy our bonus episodes. If you haven't listened to them yet, go and listen to our Kobolds episode. Go and listen to our Shania episodes.
Out of interest, if somebody is interested in playing a game with you, is there something specifically you're going to be playing at Gen Con?
I'm already signed up to a few society games, so I'm doing a bit of Starfinder tonight, and I think Sunday I'm doing some Starfinder, and I'm doing some Pathfinder on Saturday. But maybe we will try and arrange a little mini online Danger Con or something like that. We'll play a few games through Club. That
would be great. I want to get involved with Club. Who doesn't want to get involved with Club?
That would be fun, wouldn't it? We'll talk about that. We'll sort it out. But whatever you do, have a wonderful weekend, all of you. Thank you so much for joining all of us, and we will see you on Monday for some more Danger Club.
Okay.
Bye.
In a world of heroes, villains, 6 British actors will come together to play Pathfinder. It's sort of like D&D, but also really not like D&D. Join Falter.
I immediately regret this decision!
Caragor.
Oh, I see you, Kenneth.
Velda.
Behold my arcane powers!
Shania.
Yes, I've cracked your case!
M.
No, kill him.
And the Dungeon Master for an actual play podcast that takes adventure seriously. Available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and from DangerClubPodcast.com. Danger Club, let's roll. God, doing that voice hurts.